We need to talk about what's really going on with the economy because as we all know, the stock market experienced a significant downturn in response to the COVID-19 virus. And the reason why I'm doing air quotes is because it's not just about the virus. If you really do a deep dive into our economy and what's been going on with the stock markets, you can tell that things are kind of built like a house of cards, right? So Axios of all places did a really good piece that gave us just a quick look at all the different problems at play right now. And I want to read some of those issues for you and elaborate. So for instance, while the outbreak itself is unlikely to drive an economic collapse, the US has been something of a ticking time bomb for some time. I've been yelling and screaming about this on the show and I feel like no one's been paying attention. I'm glad that some people are catching on. Growth has declined over the last 2 years despite higher government spending and a $23.4 trillion national debt. Now here's what's really important to pay attention to. While Trump claims that the economy is doing well, the unemployment rate is incredibly low, the quality of those jobs, not so great, okay? So while the labor market has boomed, many of the jobs added have been hourly service industry positions that offer limited scope for savings or health insurance. And 44% of all US workers earn barely enough to live on, and that's according to a recent Brookings Institution study in January.
Okay, so the reason why the growth part is important is we did a giant tax cut, $2 trillion, and we're spending a lot of money. In a situation like that, and the Fed has cut rates. In a situation like that, you should have massive growth because you're stimulating the economy in literally every way possible. But yet growth has slowed the last 2 years. That means tick, 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 we're headed towards some sort of collapse and a recession. And so, and these things happen, they do happen in cycles, and we've actually had an extraordinary period of growth from Obama now through to Trump. So, and overstimulating the economy doesn't help, it creates bubbles that blow up. But there are things that are far worse that you should be worried about. And again, I want to give it credit to Axios as well for a great job of covering it. They explain that basically the main thing that's been keeping the country or the economy afloat is consumer spending.
Yes.
But the problem is when you have a situation like COVID-19 and people are staying home, you might also pull the rung out from that because then you don't have less consumer spending.
And it's worse than that because even without COVID-19, right? Eventually, the chickens would come home to roost. And the reason why I say that is because consumer spending isn't based on people making more money, having more cash. It's because they're going into more debt in order to afford just the household goods, the things that they need on a daily basis. So if you look at household debt today compared to what it was in the height of the economic collapse in 2008, households actually have more debt today than back then, and that is not a good sign.
So we haven't even gotten to the main economic time bomb yet. So one more note before the big one, they also said, look, they got this giant tax cuts to corporations, but they mainly did stock buybacks and hoarded the money. They did not use it for investments. If they had used it for investments, it could have grown the economy, grown their businesses, and then you would be in a much more solid economic footing. Instead, we inflated the bubble further without any basis for it. Now, here comes the disaster. Axios explains, at the same time, corporate America is more heavily indebted than ever before due to years of record low interest rates and increased borrowing. Interest rates stimulate the economy if they're lower, right? But what winds up happening is you take on a lot of debt because it's a good moment to borrow because the interest rates are low. But you can take on too much debt. Now, what they started to do was layer on derivatives, which is gambling on that corporate debt. Naomi Prince has described that on the show before. She used to work at Goldman Sachs, is a wonderful progressive now that explains how things broke down. We've talked to you about it before. Now details more from Axios, because we've been telling you about this time bomb before. Now they're saying it might go off. So they explain the Federal Reserve has repeatedly warned that this spike in leveraged lending combined with loosening covenants, I'll explain both of what those mean in a second, has created risks not only to bond issuers, but also to the wide network of hedge funds and mutual funds that actually hold the debt. There are a number of important things there, and let me translate it for you if you're not used to that kind of business lingo. A spike in leverage lending means I'm actually leveraging the lending, meaning I'm gambling on top of it. So it's not one-to-one, hey, I borrowed $100, so I owe $100. Leverage means, no, I borrowed $1,000 even though I only have $100. And now if that $100 has a problem, let's say that I've lost $50 of the 100, now they're worried I can't pay the 1,000 back. Okay, so
now they're worried about it.
Yeah, so that's why leverage creates more wealth if done very, very carefully, but is very dangerous, especially in situations like this. The main reason why the economy didn't blow up for so long is not because of America, but because Europe put caps on how much leverage the banks could do. Then America went along with that, and thank God. But now those have been loosened. In fact, that's why they say the loosening covenants. Covenants are things that give you protection. Go, well, all right, I'll let you borrow that money, but I'm gonna put a covenant on it so it's less risky, so I feel safer that I'm gonna get my money back. When you loosen those covenants and you've increased the leverage, that means there's less protection and more risk at the same time. Tick, 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 tick. And finally, where is this time bomb? If you notice at the end of the sentence, they said in the mutual bonds. Wait a minute, that's what you own. So the guys who own the top hedge funds, etc., they're gonna flip, if they might have already flipped, where they then bet against the market and they make money betting against the market, okay? But you don't have the ability to do that. Your money's stuck in a mutual fund. You're the one that hits the iceberg.
You know what would be a really good way of mitigating this? To privatize all retirement and get rid of Social Security, right? I mean, that's the real problem here, Social Security, that guaranteed safety net that you can rely on when you're ready to retire, or if something happens to you, God forbid, and you have a disability. We should get rid of that, and we should put all of our future savings in a super risky market that's rigged against us.
They do say it with a straight face, because the money managers would then make more money from managing your Social Security accounts, but when you have an economic downturn, then you'd have nothing left. So finally, they also explained something that Ray Dalio and I talked about. Now, Ray Dalio runs the world's largest hedge fund. He came on the show to talk about it because he's a brilliant guy, very, very savvy investor, incredibly logical. And we talked about the Federal Reserve and how they might be out of bullets because they've already done everything they can. They've lowered the interest rates, they've taken on toxic assets. I can go through all the different exercises that they went through. And so Dalio said, yeah, I think they're out of bullets. So I'm like, the next time a crash happens, the Federal Reserve is your last backup. If you don't have that, you're in massive trouble. He's like, that's right. Now let me quote Axios for you today. The Federal Reserve, which helped rescue the economy after the 2008 crisis, is effectively out of ammunition. Just like we told you, Dalio was on the show, what, a couple of years ago? And he was already saying they're out of bullets. And here we are, the crisis might be imminent and we're out of bullets. So one more thing, guys. The oil companies, put aside COVID-19, they first of all, like the housing crisis, the trigger was the housing crisis, but the gun was the derivatives, was the out of control leveraged gambling. In this case, even if COVID-19 was the trigger, it's not the gun. The gun is the leveraged lending to companies, but it's not COVID-19. A bigger problem, or equally big problem, that crashed the markets a couple of days ago was the price of oil. OPEC couldn't come to an agreement, price of oil went down. So why does that matter? Because they lent the oil companies so much money, and they're now worried that the oil companies are over leveraged and can't pay the money back, which then drove down the price of the banks, which then created a panic. The gun this time is the money that the corporations have, the trigger is what the corporations have borrowed. The gun is the amount of bets the banks have put on top of those loans. So when both of those go off, we're off to another recession, and God help us, because this one, there's almost nothing left we can do to pull out of it. So I don't know how big it'll be, I don't know how deep it'll be. And last thing, guys, the folks on the right and Trump go around saying, oh, the Democrats are rooting for it. Hell no. because we're all gonna get hurt.
Yes.
We're gonna get hurt real bad, all of us. Look, the elites will still have their billions. So what if Bloomberg goes down from 60 billion to 30 billion? What difference does it make? But if we hit a recession that hard, last one we lost 8 million jobs. Bloomberg didn't lose his job. The bankers didn't lose their jobs. You lost your jobs.
And most of you haven't recovered fully.
Yeah,
yeah.
They recovered fully, but now if they send us into another recession, we're all in a big trouble. And then they will blame it on minorities and progressives and all this nonsense. The reality is, guess what? Once again, the real answer is the bankers. They're the ones who took the risk. They're the ones who already took home massive salaries and bonuses. And when the bill comes due, they're gonna stick you with it. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.